Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 933. I'm Stephen in Edmonton.
We're in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
Here we are, kids. It's the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who this week. This Thursday marks 60 years of Doctor Who on our screens, and we have the busiest week of news and stuff to talk about in the history of this program. My word.
Some of it is rehashed, might not be the best word, but
that's true.
Brought back just as a reminder.
Very true. Yeah. Because we over the past couple of weeks we've mentioned like stuff that's been coming up on BBC Radio mostly and stuff for the anniversary stuff, and so we're going to do a big rundown at the end of this. We also have Benjamin Cook, Rich Tipple, and Kieran Highman, who were all worked on the the Colorized Daleks, which is airing on November 23rd at 7:30 p.m. on BBC 4. So that's coming up later on. So that's very exciting to look forward to. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this, especially after talking with those three chaps. But first, hey, there's new Doctor Who. This is our last episode of not talking about new Doctor Who.
Thumb twiddling, basically.
Except for the new Doctor Who we're going to talk about.
Except for the new Doctor Who we're talking about, Children in Need. If you missed it, we're doing our live streams again, which we're going to be on YouTube. We're using fancy new software, kids. It's very exciting. In fact, you don't know this, dear listener, but we're doing a dress rehearsal for this episode as we speak right now on YouTube with the new software. But we're doing live streams for all three episodes. Starting with the Star Beast, will be at 10 p.m. our time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern, and 5 p.m. UK time on Sunday, November 26th. So like kind of our classic traditional time for recording RFS. Same time will be for Wild Beyonder, episode 2 of the Tennant mini-season on December 3rd, Sunday, December 3rd, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. 5 p.m. in the UK. And then the Giggle, we're going to have to do it at Saturday, December 9th at 10 p.m. Eastern. But hey, those of you in Australia can be able to tune in for that one. Mm-hmm. And New Zealand, I should say, too, of course, New Zealand. So, yeah, live stream reviews on YouTube. Tune in. And also, because social media is a hellfire, doing the Fluid Links Advent calendar this year was always going to be tricky because there's new Doctor Who airing right around the same time, and if we recorded everything like a month earlier, as we usually do with our Advent calendar, then everything would be out of date and silly. And 2, Twitter is a hellfire. So instead of asking Twitter for Fluid Links questions, or like asking people on 6 different networks, be it Threads or Mastodon or Blue Sky or Instagram or Hive.
Who knows? We're
Post.
not on Hive.
That's
not a thing anymore.
We'll just leave it to Grindr.
We just leave it to Grindr. do not.
We keep getting the same question over and over. The answer is no.
Yeah. Tune into the live streams and in the live chat on YouTube. You can submit your questions and comments using the hashtag FluidLinks when the time comes to send it. And we're not going to answer them live, but we are going to go back later and collate them and record it. So we're basically going to do 8 a week. So make them good. Make sure you're one of the 8 questions, basically. It just doesn't matter. We'll just randomly draw them anyway. So there. That's all happening. It's exciting. Exciting to be talking about Doctor Who live on the internet again, which we haven't done in like 13 months, basically. So So there you go.
Yeah, and thankfully, everyone's happy about what we saw, and nobody's mad.
Nobody's mad at all.
And
When does that happen?
The internet is nice and calm.
Yep, it'll be fun. So tune in. Which means that our regular podcast, depending on how long those go, depending how long it takes to chop them up, they might be a tiny bit late on the Sunday as opposed to our usual time, but they'll be on Sunday, the actual recorded episode. If you don't want to tune into that to live stream, you can wait for the podcast recording. So. Yeah, exciting things. Okay, so all that put to bed. There's a mini Doctor Who episode on children in need, not like a trailer or a walk-on or something like that. But
Jodie Whittaker coming on stage to meet a young girl.
It wasn't anything like that. No, there was Mel. What's her name? Dressed as Jodie Whittaker's Doctor.
I have no idea who she is. But those people, I was like, whenever I watch the preamble for Children in Need, I'm like, who the hell are any of these people?
I know.
That's Sue Perkins' comedy partner, man.
Oh, sure, I guess.
Yeah, they host. All I know is they hosted a few seasons of Bake Off together. That's where you Bake Off. That's
why I have no idea.
Yeah, so she was the only touchstone. Well, I did know Lenny Rush because I knew that he was going to be Doctor Who this coming year, so he was helping.
Yeah, okay. That one I did know,
present some of it too. So anyway,
first child presenter for Children in Need, I think I saw for him.
Was he? I know he was on it last year. I don't know if he was hosting or if he just did a bit.
Well, he definitely did a bit. I remember that.
He did a bit, but I think he actually properly hosted this time. He's like 15 or 16 or something. I don't know what he is, but anyway, he's in Ncuti Gatwa's first season. But yeah, they had the Doctor Who mini episode on children in need, which Pip Madeley, who's kindly and unwittingly provided our episode title, called one of the
yes.
title options is Plunger Cutaway. Destination Skaro is what RTD called it on Instagram. I don't know if he called it that or just said this is what it's going to be, Destination
I like
Skaro.
Plunger Cutaway better.
Yeah, me too. Because, Pudsey Cutaway is kind of what they called the first Tennant one way back in 2005. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, for those of you who didn't see it, it's on YouTube. Thankfully, the first proper BBC Doctor Who thing that anyone outside of the world could watch without the use of...
And almost instantly, right after it aired, too.
It did, yeah, right away. Where Doctor Who flies his TARDIS and accidentally wrecks a Mark III Dalek and his fancy claw, and he's the one who actually suggests the name Dalek and indeed the plunger and everything like that. And Davros shows up, and he's Julian Bleach in the form of Julian Bleach and not in the chair anymore. And Russell T Davies was very vocal in saying that this is very much a conscious thing to do to basically make Davros now not some person in a Dalek bottom half or a wheelchair user. This is an actual thing. And lo, did people erupt. A lot of praise. A lot of praise.
Half and half, I think. Yeah.
I don't know if it's half and half, but yeah. Yeah. Your thoughts on Davros now being here. First off, I want to say,
we want to go right straight to Davros, or we want to talk about the actual?
Let's talk about the
mini episode first.
What do you think about the mini episode there, Chris? Did you like it? Did you had fun? Did you enjoy anything?
It was fun. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a LARF as a fundraiser and all that. Although I'm displeased that in Genesis of the Daleks there was They did not believe that there was life outside of Skaro, but both the Dalek and Moan Rizwan's character seemed to be fine with the life outside of Skaro. So, canon alert. But,
yes, that's definitely the biggest canon event in the whole thing. Yeah.
No, it was, I mean, yeah, all three of us, none of us realized it was Julian Bleach at the outset. I needed a Google alert to tell me.
I
wondered, but I wasn't sure.
No. Here's how dumb my mind went. At first, I thought, whoever's playing Davros here sounds a lot like Michael Wisher. Well done. And then after he came back and says, wait a minute, he actually sounds like Julian Bleach now that I think of it. And then when he comes back in, and it's Julian Bleach. That's why. That Julian Bleach impersonator. They got the best Julian Bleach impersonator out there in the form of Julian Bleach. I've never seen him without obviously Davros and that one awful Torchwood episode he was in, which he was like covered in a hat or something like that.
He is second only to Michael Wisher in terms of Davros. I think he is an excellent Davros, whatever form he's in.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, and then you got the Doctor saying, "Is this the genesis of the Daleks?" Like just some tongue-in-cheek stuff to make you remember that this is this is just a thing. It's not a
bit of fun. Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously.
The jaunty music underneath most of David Tennant's scenes also kind of hammered home the fact that we're having fun here. Here we go. Jaunty.
One thing that caught my attention though, and you kind of said half of this afterwards, Stephen. The Doctor Who Unleashed for this.
Right.
They show that it was David Tennant's birthday when they filmed this.
That's April.
In April.
Yeah.
And at one point in the Unleashed companion thing, David Tennant says to Stefan, what's his last name?
Powell?
Yeah.
Powell said in a really Welsh accent, but yeah.
Powell says to the presenter November 25th. For the first broadcast date. So they knew this back in April.
That's
interesting.
At least.
That's some good detective work.
I never noticed that. Well done, Chris. Yeah. In the Unleashed, that is 3 times the length of the episode that they were focusing.
2 times. It was only 10 minutes long.
Oh, it was only 10?
This is 10 minutes, yeah.
Oh, okay. I popped up in the on the iPlayer page, which obviously we don't have access to. It said 15 minutes, so I never actually checked the actual length of it, but yeah.
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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, the plunger gag. What did we think of the plunger gag?
I thought it was hilarious.
That's fine.
I thought it was funny.
It's why not? He is actually Tennant is, or 14 is actually getting everything back to where it's supposed to be by putting the plunger there. So he is actually fixing things, even though it sounds silly.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a laugh. We all had a laugh. Warren, do you have a laugh? Did you like the thing?
Yeah, it was just goofy fun. Like for a second there, I'm like, oh my God. And then I heard Mark III travel machine. I'm like, where are they going with this? And then Davros shows up. So of course, this could be a pre-accident Davros, right? So canon is fine for now. We'll get into the whole Davros thing later, but yeah, so I didn't mind that. Even within the whole schema of current Doctor Who, it still makes sense because this could have been before Davros had an accident. But yeah, I just like the back and forth and just the wacky comedic tone because you don't see that coming with Skaro, especially with those uniforms. You're like, I expect this to be a bit more Elon Musky than it was.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, the uniforms kind of struck me. It reminded me of how, Terry National has sort of equated the Daleks as Nazis, like for good reason. From the plunger salutes and Dalek invasion of Earth and onwards, and the most overt comparison was certainly Genesis of the Daleks, right down to the first recording block where like Nider has like an iron cross on there, like a proper Nazi officer, and they took it off after that. And so it was actually kind of striking to see those uniforms again, because
we haven't seen him since. I don't think.
I haven't. No. With the little, the little eye,
the lightning in the eye thing,
the eye thing,
which is very 1984 as well. So
it is kind of, isn't it? Yeah. And then let's get to it. The Davros walks on stage and he's like, okay, interesting. Like it's pre-accident Davros essentially is what it was, because it happens before they even come with the Mark IV travel machine. But in the Unleashed afterwards, which we shared on our Twitter account, I'm still calling it Twitter, and lo, did that blow up in all the comments. There were literally thousands of likes on it, and then most of the people who agreed with it, basically, well, RTD has spoken for us, so I don't need to add on to it. And then the people who are upset are the ones who comment.
Yes, quite so.
The vocal minority, so they say. But yeah, Russell D. Davies was saying, basically the history of, deformed people and wheelchair users, is a long running trope, and they are basically stopping it here. And Davros is now no longer going to be portrayed as that. And then, everyone overreacts, of course, and it's, for whatever reason. But I think showing him pre-accident is a great way to later on show him, to not be in the chair. I mean, all that Dalek technology, he can clone himself or like get science together and not have to use, the Dalek base to get around anymore,
He's one of the universe's most brilliant scientists. I'm pretty sure he just never got around to it till now. But also, he's full of regenergy if we're going by what canon. So
that's true.
So he could have just regenerated his limbs. Who knows?
So a couple things I want to bring up about this. Number one, I forget who said this. This is not my thought, not my original thought, but somebody had mentioned that perhaps the doctor's influence on him as a child changed something canon-wise.
Oh, I like that.
And secondarily, RTD says that people who are shown in wheelchairs or disabled or differently abled, whatever, are often shown as evil. So he cites Davros from Genesis, but leaves out others like the Collector or Max Capricorn or whoever. But he says this is the new Davros. This is now the canonical Davros. So does that mean this is the only time we're going to see him? So this is now kind of like a throwaway thing, or
I doubt it.
Or because he's also said the Daleks are getting a bit of a rest, are we going to not see him, or might we see him without the Daleks?
Possibly, yeah.
I don't think the Daleks are showing up certainly in the first season of Ncuti Gatwa, and Russell D. Davies has gone on record of saying, I think it's important to rest them a little bit, to not have them all the time. Because they sort of kind of like Marvel movies and series, they lose their potency if you have them on there too often. I think this is going to be the Davros going forward, which is fine.
Yes.
A lot of people,
how much are we actually going to see him though?
I don't know. Actually, I don't think he's going to be an ongoing villain or anything like that. I don't think he's going to be like the Master in season 8 of he's going to be in every single episode.
The other way to look at this, the other way to look at this is like, and I know you hate Strange New Worlds, but when Strange New Worlds came out, they're like, well, we can either have the crappy looking Enterprise from the 60s, or we can redo this thing and you just kind of accept this is what it looks like now. And this is kind of the same thing. It's just like, all right, that's the way it is now. He's right. We've had Davros for about 50 years now in that form, which is iconic.
Yep.
But there's no reason you can't shake it up and change it. Like, why not? Like,
it's a time travel show. We had Davros, as you alluded to, Warren. We had him as a little kid in The Magician's Apprentice, and I think like afterwards he'll just not be in the chair anymore. I know a lot of, and some comments are saying, "Oh, what now? People in wheelchairs can't be villains or something." Well, imagine someone who's a wheelchair user who came to you and says, "Oh, Doctor Who, you like that show? Are there any people in wheelchairs in that one?" Yes, actually. Yes, there's one guy. He's Space Hitler. So you can be happy with that. The immediate, the reaction or the immediate impact of someone who's a wheelchair user who has never seen Doctor Who or anything like that sees, okay, that's me. I guess that's where my representation is in Doctor Who. It's the most horrendous villain in the entire show's history. So I can see why they do it. And the world moves on, and Doctor Who must move on with it, as Russell said in the video.
I saw one person remark that anybody evil should look like anybody else, insofar as like anyone could be evil.
I know, that's a good point.
Except for Donald Trump, who looks like a orange.
That's true. But honestly, like seeing Davros in that form kind of made him feel even, because he's just a guy, he's just a guy.
Well, it comes down to acting at that point. And Julian Bleach can probably deliver the goods as just being evil.
Really good. He's really good at it. And they even like had sort of like the sunken eye. Maybe that's Julian Bleach's eyes. Maybe he's got legitimate sunken eyes.
I was getting Grand Moff Tarkin vibes off him.
Yeah, a little bit, honest. It did kind of like, not to go back to Hitler, but it's almost like here's this meek person who is at the head of the Nazi Empire is kind of what makes Hitler scared. The fact that
awful deeds.
That is awful. The fact that this somewhat nondescript idiot who rants and raves and stuff eventually is actually responsible for the greatest, atrocities in human history is what makes him, if I can't believe we're going to get Hitler on this thing, but if he was this giant 6'8" behemoth with like a massive broadsword or something like that, it's like, come on. But the fact that he's this little twerp, and Davros is kind of now this sort of meek person, bossing around marketing in the skit that we were watching, because he's trying to come up with the
Kyle-led marketing. I love it.
It's just coming up with different anagrams for Khaled and everything like that. It does feel much more evil. You're right. So I bet you they'll just work in. They'll work in. If the Daleks turn up again and Davros is there, it's like, hey, look at me. I cloned myself, and now I'm better. Or not better, but I'm not what I was.
Took you long enough, but whatever.
Exactly. So no, they're not erasing previous Davros episodes. No, they're not sort of discounting.
They're not putting
any of
Anakin
that.
in at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Putting Anakin. They're not going to CG Julian Bleach over top of Terry Malloy and David Gooderson and Michael Wisher or previous Julian Bleach. None of that's happening, folks. All right. All the previous Doctor Who's still exist with Davros in it. Now there's just going to be a new way of portraying him. It's okay. You'll be fine. All right. Have we said all we want to say on that?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah? You sure that, Chris?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Well, anyway, other thing on the YouTube channel is there's a new to Who guide. That's what, 5, 6, 8, 10, 9 minutes long with clips and
9
stuff.
minutes long.
Did you watch it? I watched it. It was fun. It was fun.
I watched it. Oh.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing. Sure.
Yeah. For people who are brand new to Doctor Who, given that the BBC is like on the iPlayer website. Not that we have access to it. It says, Doctor Who 63 to 96, and then 2005 to 22, and then 2023 dash. We're officially in a new era of Doctor Who. So it's kind of important to sort of like lay the groundwork. And
not to drag us back in the previous discussion, but there's another way you can introduce a new Davros. This is a whole new era or whatever.
Yep.
With bridging of Mark III travel machines and David Tennant. So, so is it and isn't it? So.
Yeah, true. So recording this on Saturday, November 18th. We still have yet to see any Disney Plus landing page for Doctor Who. I was asking the two of you off mic, off camera, before recording, if what time Loki or the Mandalorian. I don't remember what the time distance.
I think it was about a week out. Or maybe
we're a week out now.
Yeah. So we should be seeing something soon, maybe.
You would hope
if they care enough. This is not a Disney production, so maybe they don't.
One week and 1 hour as we record.
This fair 2 hours, 1 week and 2 hours.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past.
No, it is 6:30. It is
to put the promo out exactly after we're done recording. That's usually what happens.
Yeah. That's probably how it's going to be. So anyway, I'm sure a lot of you have checked Disney Plus every day, like I have, to see if it's there yet, and it's not there yet. But
you just need to exercise some patience.
No,
good luck with that.
I don't want to do that.
It'll be there when it's there. Just like this whole, massive Blu-ray set that we're both waiting for from BBC Shop and have had no word yet.
Well, the difference
is it doesn't actually come out for a few more days.
That'll never be there until it's there.
Yeah, I know. Well, when they initially announced it was coming out the 14th, November 14th, and so I was still stuck into that impression, and I was wondering, why isn't it here yet? And I even emailed BBC support, why isn't it here yet? And then Chris very kindly informed me that they changed it to November 21st, so that's why it's not here yet.
I just checked the app on my phone, still no promo. So there we are.
Still no promo at Disney Plus? All right, well, There we go. As of 9:32 Pacific time on November 18th. So no Disney promo yet.
Every month on one tech blog or another that I read, there's always what's upcoming on Disney Plus next month, or what's new on Netflix next month.
That's called filler, is what that is.
Yes, but looking at stuff like that, at least Doctor Who is getting listed on such things, even if Disney Plus itself doesn't have a landing page.
That's true.
Which means a press release was issued.
Press releases were issued. They even, they used the same synopsis for all 3 episodes, and then there was no synopsis for the Church on Ruby Road, which we haven't heard official word from the BBC yet, oddly enough, about the Christmas special, which is kind of interesting. So maybe they'll show something. I don't know what that is, but we know it. We already know it's coming to BBC One on Christmas Day, so the surprise has been spoiled. Here's another interesting thing. Both Wild Beyonder, which we have an actual webpage for on the BBC, it will air also 6:30 p.m. on December 2nd, Saturday, December 2nd. But also there's a note that that the Giggle will also air on the 9th, December 9th, 6:30 p.m. All 3 episodes, all the same time on BBC One. I wonder if that is sometimes there's like a 5-minute variance or like, it's actually going to be 6:20 or something like that because something will run shorter. I'm wondering if Disney Plus said, yeah, we'd like to drop them at the exact same time all 3 weeks. So if you could just go ahead and schedule them on your BBC One at the same time, that would be just fab. And so that's what they did. So if you want to guess what time of day they're going to drop on Disney Plus, my guess is whatever Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is on Disney Plus. So we'll find out. We'll find out what time and indeed what place. Well, we know what place it'll be, but we don't know yet because we don't have a landing page on Disney Plus, and I'm most upset about it. Most upset.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nick, how do you pronounce her name? Nicola Coughlan?
Coughlin? I have no idea.
I've just realized that I don't know how to pronounce her name. Anyway, she from Dairy Girls and Bridgerton has joined the cast probably for the Christmas special for Shooty Gatwa's second season. So like the 2024 Christmas special, right? Yeah, because they're shooting that and they might have wrapped it by now. So she's going to be in that. So a lot of people were happy with that because they've seen her in Dairy Girls, and I think I've been in the room when Erica has been watching Bridgerton to know that she's in that now. But now that she's a Doctor Who alumnus, I'll pay attention to her more.
Wow.
Yeah.
She those who follow set reports have seen her on set some time ago, so I'm sure this is one of those announcements that only came out because the information was already out there through unofficial sources.
Yeah, because even
Yeah,
go ahead, Warren.
So I was going to say it's for Christmas next year. So by the time that rolls around, we'll have forgotten she's in it until
100%.
Oh yeah, her.
Yeah, 100%. 100% we will. Yeah. Oh, I know her from season 8 of Bridgerton because 8 seasons of Bridgerton will have come out by the time that her Christmas special will have come out. What else is happening in the news? Which again, sorry kids, this is going to be the longest episode of Radio Free Skaro that's not a commentary ever. But Shooty got at was it GQ Man of the Year awards or something like that, an award show. He was speaking into the mic and stuff like that on stage, and he mentioned that he just recently shot a scene with what he thought was William Hartnell's Doctor. He mentioned this. Everyone went to, and then the internet did explode and tried to there's going to be a scene coming up later on in Shooty Gatwa's first season that'll have William Hartnell in there and stuff like that. Everyone sort of went, well, it's probably not going to be that, but could be something. We'll say.
I do like the way of a doctor who just kind of says stuff.
I know,
to the detriment of RTD's publicity machine.
Yeah, to hell with the NDAs and stuff like that. I was just going to shoot his mouth off like that, but yeah, there might be something to that, but I don't think it's what the Mirror in their. I love that the Mirror claimed an exclusive, given that Shooty Gatwa was just speaking on a podium at an awards show.
Yeah. That's not exclusive. Exclusive that you got it out first. That's about it.
Yes,
at least something like that is easily done insofar as, it could be some flashback to a William Hartnell clip or,
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that such a thing could happen.
Mm-hmm. I think
Morbius Doctor's thing, who knows? He'll
talk to himself, bang his head on the console, and then he'll groggily remember the time that he met the Cyberman, except it was in color. I'm alluding to the April Fool's gag back in 83 or 84 that I think even Doctor Who magazine got swindled on, where there's going to be during the making of Frontios, they were going to shoot Peter Davison, knock his head, and then remember that and then he'll wake up as Richard Herndl, and and then they were going to colorize the newly found episode 4 of the 10th planet, and that's what the April Fool's gag was.
That seems remarkably ambitious for 1984, whatever that was.
I'm thinking I think they might have colorized it. They certainly were going to show it anyway, but no, it's an April Fool's gag, and everyone got suckered in. So,
or maybe he'll hit his head and wake up remembering he used to be misogynistic and racist.
I was going to say maybe this is the 15th Doctor punching out the first Doctor.
That's true.
Which I'm not 100% against seeing that.
True. Hey, as we segue into our Dalek talk, the BBC actually unveiled color images, screen grabs of the upcoming colorized Dalek episode, which is pretty cool, actually. Very colorful. Very, very colorful Daleks in their control room, and Susan and Thals, and they're wearing a lot of this stuff sort of comes from, the bright blue things you could sort of see in the onset photos from back in the day. The very blue floor in the TARDIS control room, I thought, which is kind of interesting. And then, a lot of blue happening.
I'm going to watch this. It looks kind of intriguing.
I tell you what, Warren, I'm intrigued too, and I imagine you are too. So let's take a break and talk to Benjamin Cook, Rich Tipple, and Kieran Highman about how they colorized the Daleks. On November 23rd, to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, a special colorized omnibus version of the very first Dalek story will air on BBC4 and on iPlayer. And 3 of the people in charge of bringing this amazing achievement to life are with me today, including editor Benjamin Cook. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
And 2 members of the colorization team, Rich Tipple. Hello, Rich.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. And Kieran Hyman, not in Perth, Australia. Hi, Kieran.
Hi, how's it going?
Not bad. Thank you for moving to other parts of the world to accommodate our recording times, because I'm not sure we would have ever have lined you up if you were still in Perth, Australia. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I just thought, be more helpful to come to Bristol to do this podcast recording.
Thank you for making the sacrifice. So this is something that has been a year in the making, in secret, I might add. So, Ben, we'll start with you. How did this colorized version of the Daleks all come about?
Well, do you know, it was sort of mentioned in the same breath as Russell coming back to Doctor Who, about whenever it was, a couple of years ago now, I think. When was he announced as returning?
September 26th, 2021, I think it was. Was that when it was? Yeah, I know it was September 26th.
Hasn't time flown?
I know.
He sort of said, oh, he sent me a message saying, are you sitting down? I've got some news. I might be coming back to Doctor Who. And sort of in the same breath, he said, and that's just part 1 of my master plan. Part 2 is to revitalize the archive. You've got 60 years of amazing Doctor Who, except for the sort of 15 years where the BBC forgot to make it in the 90s. And we want to bring it to life to a whole new audience. And part of that was he wanted to get the entire back catalogue up on iPlayer, which has, as of a couple of weeks ago, happened. It's almost all there. And another part of it was to colorize the very first Dalek story, to sort of present it in a format that, I mean, it is some of the best television ever made. It definitely is, and we all think so. But also, there are some barriers to entry for, today's 12-year-old, and black and white is one of them. The length as well, seven episodes is quite a lot to get through. So Russell's idea was to edit it into a 75-minute blockbuster, and new music, new sound design, and best of all, to present it in full colour for the first time. So that's when Rich and Kieran and Scott and Tim got their crayons out.
So this is amazing because, you think that, he's going to be showrunner, and now I'll come up with ideas. It sounds like he had a lot of this stuff fully formed when he announced that he was coming back, like over 2 years ago, like including this Dalek thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's sort of remarkable, isn't it? But then it doesn't always, with Russell, it doesn't always work that way. Some stuff is planned so far in advance. There are other things like you might have seen, depending on where in the world you are, you might have seen Tales of the TARDIS, which went up on iPlayer just a couple of weeks ago. And those were all of I think about 2 months in the planning. It was a sudden last minute idea of let's do this amazing thing. And Russell being Russell, he can sort of make that happen. But you can't do that with these colorizations. You can't go, oh, I know, we'll broadcast something in a couple of months. It's a painstaking process, and so you've got to plan well in advance. So yeah, this has sort of been in the works for. I mean, these guys have been colorizing it for the best part of a year, but it was planned from I think about 2 years ago, maybe slightly longer.
Goodness me. Yeah, Rich, Kieran, I had the pleasure of witnessing some of your prior work at Gallifrey 1 in 2020, speaking of things that seem a long, long time ago, which was, of course, the public viewing of the Daleks Master Plan Part 2. I assume that the strength of that and, Rich, your other colorization projects is what got you involved in this.
Yeah, well, apparently so. It was late January 2022. I just got a phone call completely out of the blue from someone claiming to be Phil Collinson's assistant at Bad Wolf, saying they'd like to talk to me about my colorization work. And I was probably 80 to 90% convinced it was a mate on a wind-up. But it was followed up with an email from a Bad Wolf email address. So, yeah, started, thinking, Christ, this is quite cool. So I ended up going up to speak to them, and yeah, they'd seen some of the YouTube work. I think they'd seen Josh Snares' video on how we pulled Day of Armageddon together, and I think at that point, I don't think they were necessarily set on us doing it, but they were keen to pick my brains on what some of the challenges might be in doing something of this scale. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously Kieran is part of this too. So Kieran, how did you get involved in this?
Well, it's from having known Rich for so long, working on that Day of Armageddon thing. We'd sort of worked in together on that hand in hand, and I'd been responsible on that for pulling everyone's work together, because we had 4 contributors on that as well, including Scott. And I had the job of making sure everyone's work, because we're all 4 separate individual artists. We've all got our own sort of quirks, and I have to sort of iron them out into one thing that's of a piece, so you can't tell from scene to scene that it's a different person having done the colorization work,
Right.
And so that's what has been my main responsibility on this as well, in addition to a great chunk of the colorization work itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Ben, I mean, cutting down 7 25-minute episodes to 75 minutes sounds daunting. Were you given the 75-minute parameter from the get-go to say, here's what your target is, or did you sort of whittle your way down and says the most we could do is 75 minutes before it gets a little bit unruly?
No, pretty much, yeah. I mean, I've heard sort of Rich say this as well, but when I was sort of asked, is it possible? And you're asked by Russell, and you're asked by Phil Collinson, is something possible, and do you want to be involved? You, of course, say, yes, it's possible, and then work out whether it actually is later. And so I did feel that I went on a podcast, Galactic Yo-Yo podcast in 2018, and talked about, which is a podcast where you go on and you come armed with an unpopular opinion about Doctor Who. And my unpopular opinion about Doctor Who was that all of 20th century Doctor Who pretty much could do with a ruddy good edit. And so I was itching to get my hands on the Daleks. But as you say, it's I think 172 minutes when you run the episodes back to back down to 75, which is quite daunting. But then it's daunting for all of the first sort of 30 seconds of day one of the edit, because you're aware as well that you're editing some of the most iconic television ever made. But then after that first 30 seconds of day one, you have to treat it like anything else and be ruthless and do what's best for the story and do what's best for a 2020s audience and do what's best for, today's 12-year-old, who, as I say, will perhaps have been put off by the length of some, 60s Doctor Who. Also, look, I mean, that they spend the best part of a whole episode in the caves. They spend a half of episode 1, gathered around the food machine. It takes a bit of a while for the story to get going. You want to get to the Daleks. You want to get into that city faster. And so it felt sort of daunting but achievable.
Well, I mean, not to spoil things, but I mean, the cliffhanger to episode 1 is perhaps the most iconic in the series history.
Yeah.
And you don't have cliffhangers in this. Obviously, it's an omnibus version. So was it easy to sort of say, I'm going to ruin one of the most iconic moments of Doctor Who because I'm going to immediately cut away from it to material from episode 2?
Isn't it wonderful that 60 years after it aired, we're still worried about spoilers? But there you go. You see, Russell's aim of bringing, the archive alive and making it feel sort of bold and new and unpredictable again has come to fruition. I mean, you lose the cliffhangers, but you build tension in other ways. We're sort of what's lovely about this is I think it does make the Daleks feel unpredictable again in all sorts of ways. There is, of course, the question of, well, what's made it into the cut and what hasn't. There's the question of what color things are. But also we've got a couple of sort of brand new scenes in there. I don't think it's giving too much away to say that we went back to the original voice of the Daleks, David Graham, who's now 98, and he recorded some brand new Dalek lines for us, as did Nicholas Briggs. So we've got Nicholas Briggs and David Graham playing in scenes together, sort of bestriding the eras. So hopefully it sort of feels sort of like it did, 60 years ago. It feels bold and unpredictable again. I mean, we call 1960s Doctor Who classic Doctor Who, or we think of it as what's the phrase, legacy television. But the people back then weren't making classic Doctor Who. They were just making Doctor Who. They weren't making legacy television. They were making something that was going to be on TV in, 3 or 4 weeks' time and was going to, send kids scurrying behind the sofa. So hopefully we can sort of, inject a bit of that unpredictability back in. I love the fact that over the years, when I've sort of done, and I've interviewed, Russell or Stephen Moffat or people for Doctor Who magazine, and often ahead of a new season of Doctor Who, they'll talk about things like, well, who will live and who will survive? Will Donna Noble make it out alive? Or, one of these 4 leads will die this season. I love the fact that here we are talking about, will the TARDIS food machine make it to into the edit alive? What will happen to the part 1 cliffhanger?
Tune in to BBC 4 to find out.
Find out, exactly.
Well, I mean, so going back to Day of Armageddon briefly, which is, Dalek's master plan isn't, I don't think, a haven of color photography to get resources from. Was it difficult to find what color things were supposed to be, Rich and Kieran, for colorizing this one?
I'm going to say something a little bit controversial at this point. I wasn't massively I wasn't massively bothered what color things were. I was sort of more bothered about choosing colors that looked really good,
right,
and worked in the palettes that we had. And I sort of feel like, well, if this was going to have been shot in color, they may have made different color choices, but it wasn't. They knew it was going to be in black and white, so everything was dressed and set that way. But we've got the sort of option of adding some color in here, and what do we do with that? How do we make things leap off the page? How do we tell the story through the color? And that sounds very pretentious, but when you watch the edit, you'll see a couple of instances where we've used color to help drive the narrative a bit in a way that just simply wasn't possible in the 60s. And I'm very excited to talk more about that after it's been on BBC 4 and you've all seen it. But
right.
I won't say anything more than that at this time. Colour, I think, is something that excites Kieran and I. We want things to look vibrant and bright, and we want it's 1960s Doctor Who. 1960s to me, when I close my eyes, I think of such a vibrant era. I think of Carnaby Street. I think of lava lamps. I think of all of these like kind of amazing Wizard of Oz and all of this sort of stuff kind of sparks in my mind. And that really contrasts with the sort of black and white images of this TV show. It's such a colourful era with such bold and brilliant ideas, and I sort of feel like the colour can reflect that a little bit. There's things obviously we're not going to change. Like, why would you change the the color of the Dalek hemispheres, for example. We know that they're blue and they look absolutely gorgeous in blue, so we're not going to touch that. But there's other things you can do where you can think, oh, you know what? If we've got a blue wall and blue floor, and someone's wearing a blue top, why don't we change that? And what will that top look like against, against this wall in the city? What will it look like when we're in the jungle set, and how will it work when we're in the caves? They're all decisions that we have to make really early doors about what people are wearing. So there's, it's certainly, I don't want to come across at all flippant about. We put a huge amount of thought into the color, but we weren't going to be, we weren't going to narrow our focus to, what was, what color was Barbara's tights, what type of shoe was Ian wearing, all of that. So, there's things obviously you wouldn't change. And then there's other things that you've got to look at the overall palette and the overall feel, and then maybe get a little bit creative with it.
Well, this is something similar that Rachel Talalay has said in the past, I think on this podcast even, which is when they were doing the recreations of the scenes from the 10th Planet for the Capaldi finale, but they do that. Having Polly in a slightly duller coloured dress rather than the bright pink that Annika Wills was wearing on set was a deliberate choice to fit the cooler tone of those scenes, which people notice. It's not the original, but it works better in colour, and that's what we've been thinking on this. Rest assured, we've looked at the original colour photos that exist that were taken by Raymond Cusick on set. But as Rich says, those colors were never intended to be seen in color. They were chosen for the tone that they appear in black and white. And we've taken out, cues really from other shows of the time and films, namely the Peter Cushing films were a good case in point, because that's a direct example of this story, the Daleks, being taken by one production team from taking the black and white story and thinking, how can we do this in color, and making those decisions. And some of the color choices that were made in that, we've actually sort of pinched, if we can say that.
Well, when I sat down with Phil Collinson in Cardiff and sort of had my laptop open and started talking through some of the color choices we might look to lean into, what Kieran says is absolutely correct. I also showed an awful lot of imagery from the original Star Trek, which is obviously of a sort of similar era and is incredibly bold and vibrant science fiction. And I feel, hand on heart, if Doctor Who had been filmed in colour in the 60s, it would have been quite similar to that in many ways.
I mean, you look how eventually it gets into color, and the Claws of Axos is perhaps the most colorful Doctor Who story ever created, and that's just soon after the advent of color. So you're probably right, and and you're already editing it down to 75 minutes. So this is, and I imagine you all sort of approach this as an interpretation of a 1960s story made for 2023, and not necessarily like just slavishly recreating it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a remix. It's a what if it had been shot in color? What if it had a bit more money? What if, also the wonderful thing about, well, a lot of Doctor Who, but certainly it's true of this first Dalek story, is that there's precedent for this. It aired on telly at the end of 1963 into 64. Within a few months, it had been adapted by David Whittaker into Doctor Who in an exciting adventure with the Daleks, and that completely rewrote the opening. And then within another year, as Kieran was saying, there was the first of those Cushing Dalek movies, and then another year on, and you've got an American comic book adaptation, which the TARDIS is green in that. It's something which has kept sort of being reworked and reimagined and remixed, several times before William Hartnell had even regenerated into Patrick Troughton. So certainly 60 years on, what we're doing is in the grand tradition of what they were doing, a number of times before the 1960s was out. And you've got to be bold. You've got to own it. It can't, you can't treat it. We absolutely love 1960s Doctor Who, and we love this original Dalek story. But you can't treat it with so much reverence that you end up doing nothing with it, and you end up sort of, treating it like it's a precious artifact in a dusty case in a museum, which people sort of file past and then file onto the next, case containing Marco Polo or the Keys of Marinus. I mean, you've got to grab it and be bold with it and make it your own.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just want to jump in to say how much I agree with that point. And Ben honestly has done such a superb job on the edit of this. It really, it's incredible. It's just incredible how it all hangs together now. There's so much. Every time I rewatch it, and I rewatched it quite a few times, I spot more things. It really is really clever, and I think we had to be as brave with our color decisions as Ben was with his edit. And as he says, these things in our minds, it comes from a place of complete and utter adoration. We love the 1960s. Certainly, I think the 1960s era of Doctor Who is the show at its absolute best and most bold. I think it's incredible. One of the reasons I've always wanted to colorize is because I wanted to get people who didn't see it how I saw it to give it a chance. There was an immediate barrier to entry with black and white for some people, and I couldn't quite understand that. So it's fantastic that we can take this amazing piece of television heritage but not treat it like a holy relic.
Mm-hmm.
Try and update it and give it bells and whistles and things that they couldn't have done at the time, that we can do now, and just create a fresh perspective on something that is utterly stunning piece of television.
Yeah. I mean, the artistic side is great. I'm always fascinated by the logistical side of things. Like, I'm curious, Benjamin, like when you were editing things and, you don't have separate tracks. Everything is all on one track when it comes to audio. If there's a particular scene that has music, and we'll get that to a little bit. I know Mark Ayres isn't here to talk about his music score, but like, were there certain elements where you're thinking, I would love to do a cut here, but there's a big, rising swell in the original soundtrack from Tristram Cary. How do we get around that? Did that sort of affect some of your edits at all? Or did you just sort of say, Mark Ayres, you figured this out. This is how it's going to be?
Well, not so much with the music, because actually the music, the original music from the Daleks is amazing, but there's actually not very much of it. You've got lots of what Russell described as those sort of deathly 60s silences. You've got, minutes and minutes and minutes going by, whole action sequences going by without, a single note of an incidental score. It was more that the problem more was that if there was, if there was a scene where you had a really important bit you wanted to keep in at the beginning of the scene and another really important bit you wanted to keep in at the end of the scene, but you couldn't cut the middle bit out because the camera didn't cut away to anything. I mean, this is 1960s television, so it is still shot a little bit like, like theatre on TV. You can almost sort of see that proscenium arch around the screen. And so that was the tricky stuff, that there wasn't anything to cut away to. There weren't many reaction shots. Also, look, they're shooting in a tiny corner of Lime Grove Studio D, and they're trying to sort of do, I mean, you've got to admire their ambition, but that there were sort of Dalek versus Thal shootouts on a budget of nothing in a tiny corner of a studio. You've got Thal's abseiling in from the ceiling. It's all going on. So you've got to admire their ambition. But it's 1960s television. And so the biggest challenge for me was just there's nothing to cut away to. But it was a case of pulling every trick in the book. Mark Ayres has worked wonders with the sound design and the music and using all sorts of modern technology to separate music from dialogue and the works. We've thrown everything at it.
Mm-hmm. So I'll ask you, Ben, is Richard Martin directed Doctor Who easier or worse to edit than Christopher Barry? Because both directors handle different episodes of this.
Well, I've got to be diplomatic because I've interviewed them both,
right?
And only one of them's still alive. I interviewed Christopher Barry. I became his pen pal for a bit about 20 years ago. We did a massive interview for Doctor Who magazine that was published across like 3 parts or something. Yeah, I mean, look, there were some bits where you sort of wished that they'd been pointing the camera in a slightly different direction. When you've got a crucial line or a crucial moment where the camera is not quite on the people it needs to be, that can be a little bit frustrating. But also, I know it's a cliche as old as the show itself, but they were shooting this almost as if it's live. I came away from that edit with so much admiration for that entire team, both directors, that cast as well. William Hartnell, you get so much sort of, he does get a bit of, as fans, we like to talk about Billy fluffs. And then you actually watch what he's doing. And most of the time, he's not fluffing his lines any more than anyone else. And actually, we haven't left those, the mistakes from any actor that are in there, where someone trips over their lines. We've given the actors the courtesy that you would give any actors today, which is we edit out the mistakes or we cut around it. So hopefully, what we're presenting is the sort of the tightest, sharpest, sort of, scariest, funniest version of the Daleks that there's ever been. I said this in Doctor Who magazine as well, so forgive me for repeating myself. But before I started the edit, I went back, with my background as a interviewer for Doctor Who magazine. I went and dug out some old Doctor Who magazines and tried to read as many interviews as I could with the people who made the Daleks back in the 60s. And I read one interview with not with William Hartnell. He didn't give many interviews, as you know. He died in the mid-70s, but his widow, Heather Hartnell, survived him by a few years, and she used to sort of answer fan mail for him, and she'd go to the odd convention and give the odd interview. And she gave an interview to Doctor Who magazine in the early 80s where she's asked about what her husband's biggest regret about Doctor Who was. And she said that William Hartnell's biggest regret about Doctor Who was that those episodes hadn't been made in colour, that those amazing costumes and sets and props had only ever been seen, in black and white. So I hope that we've done William Hartnell proud, and Rich and Kieran and the team have done the most amazing work with the colorization. I was saying to them the other day, but when I see black and white clips from the Daleks now, it's like I'm seeing a work in progress print. Like, do you remember when what was it, Peter Capaldi's first series?
Series 8, yeah, the Marcelo Camargo leaks, yeah.
That's right. There were several episodes that leaked out in black and white, and it feels now to me like the Daleks has always been in color. That is the version I when I close my eyes and dream about at night. That's the version I see in my head.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, how
does that sidestep your question about Richard Martin's direction?
No, very nicely, very nicely. Well done.
Such skill. Just keep talking until they forget that was ever the question.
It's like you've written 3-page previews of episodes you're not allowed to talk about in Doctor Who magazine for years.
Yes, it almost is.
It's a simple question, Richard, Kieran, is it tough to colorize 75 minutes of Doctor Who? Are you doing it frame by frame? Is there computer software which you could sort of track this color onto this particular object throughout the scene? Like, was it a difficult process is what I'm asking you to colorize this thing?
Well, it was a difficult process, certainly. There is a bit of software that can help us with tracking and motion estimation. But the core of it and the heart of it is just taking a frame or keyframe and coloring it in like a digital painting, and then, making sure that you do it the exact same way in every shot of the scene for consistency's sake. But yes, it's a long slog, which is why it took us, 4 of us, 11 and a half months start to finish to get the thing done.
Yeah, I'd echo that. It's there's things that can help, but it doesn't really. It is a huge amount of work, absolute phenomenal amount of work. Every 5-10 keyframes, and then tidying up the interpolation when invariably it goes wrong. So yeah, you've got hundreds of color decisions to make. Kieran's then got the kind of unenviable job of getting 4 separate artists' work and making it all look like one tidy palette. And you've got to stitch it all together, so you've got the creative and you've got the technical, and it's tricky. But when you love something as much as we love 1960s Doctor Who, I don't think you let that stand in the way of it, and I'm just so glad that it's, if it had been a colorization house or something like that produced this, they possibly wouldn't have kept going back and fixing it and fixing it and fixing it until it was absolutely the best it can be. And that's what we've attempted to do.
Yeah, and lucky for us, we also have, with us Scott and Tim, who are, I think top class, and the two of the other two best colorizers that I know, apart from Richard, and well, I've just included myself in that accidentally, but Tim and Scott.
Yeah, Scott Brennett and Timothy K. Brown are the other two who were on this and aren't on the call right here. How did you divvy up the work then? Like, did you each take an episode? Did you each take like certain scenes? Like, I'll do the Dalek ones, you'll do the Thal City one, that sort of thing. Like, how did the division of labor work?
But sort of set by set, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was something we divvied up right early on. I tried to. We've all got our strong points, so I try to sort of work to that. I know, I knew instinctively that everything in the jungle would look absolutely phenomenal by Kieran because he's just so good with those palettes. Those I won't say the colors, but those palettes.
Right.
He's exceptional at. So I made sure he absolutely had them. Inside the TARDIS was a complete no-brainer. Timothy, absolutely phenomenal artist, so good at what he does. And when those nice, evenly lit scenes, and he brings just so much sort of dynamic color to them. It's absolutely fantastic. And then the cave stuff was mostly given over to Scott because it's really, really, really hard. And I don't know, I just don't know anyone as tenacious as Scott when it comes to colorizing. He's an absolute workhorse. He's incredible. And what when the rope is being thrown around in those cave scenes, it's so incredibly difficult to do. Anything with high motion is difficult, and a rope being thrown from one person to the next is about as difficult as it gets. And you're dealing with really bright, spotty lighting, so you've got really, really dark parts, and you've got really, really overexposed parts. It's technically very, very difficult, and I knew Scott would be fantastic at that. And me, I'm very good at rotoscoping. I'm a sucker for a Dalek, so I took a lot of the city stuff.
And what Tim and Scott are also very good at is that naturalistic look. Scott's also quite good at that, the effect of the videotape, So I think that's something we thought about for those darker scenes, because that becomes important, because in the dark scenes like the caves, on original 60s videotape, you get that sort of chromatic aberration effect more so than in brighter and regularly lit scenes. Whereas me and Rich, apart from that sort of naturalistic thing that Tim and Scott are good at, we really love the 60s bright, bold colors. So all of the Dalek stuff in the cities where we could inject as much color as we could, that was really our alley.
Was there a lot of back and forth between like the BBC and Russell and Phil Collinson then, or did they just sort of leave you to your devices knowing that, I mean, you've already expressed your dedication and to perfection in this project? Like, did they ever say this, no, this isn't good enough, reject this, this part needs to come out here? Like, how much back and forth was there?
The BBC largely left us to it, didn't they? They seemed to sort of trust us to get on with it, and seemed then, a few months ago impressed enough by, well, mainly by what Rich and Kieran and Scott and Tim had done to ask us for another one next year before this one was even finished, which is sort of the greatest sort of sign that the colorization team have done the most amazing job that there could be.
Yeah, I think they very much left us alone. They never sent anything back and said it wasn't good enough. I think early doors, we would send lots of test palettes over, so we would send a character design for each character and a set design for each set. And there would be feedback on that. What would it look like if we went for this instead of that? And there was a few of them over a few weeks at the beginning of the project, which is exactly what we wanted. And then we settled on something we were all happy with, and then the color at that point is locked in, and then it's just the job of sort of getting on with it and colorizing it. So I'd send a monthly update with how many shots we've done, how many are left. I'd send a few scenes, and yeah, the feedback was always extremely positive.
Yeah, the only notes that I really remember later on in the project was technical things, bits where maybe the process of getting the keyframes across a whole second of footage has gone wrong a bit, and we had to fix up a bit of bleed or something like that. But in terms of discussions with Bad Wolf between us, the colorizers, Richard was the leader of our team and was the go-between between everyone and the CGI team and that sort of. And I think Richard is the best of us for that. He does a great job at discussing and getting the information across to both sides. Great producer.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kieran.
That's true.
Even after all this, they don't hate each other. So well done. Ben dropped it in there. I was going to ask, but he already mentioned it. So there's a second one coming. Obviously, you're not going to mention which one it is, but they were so pleased with you. Oh, I will ask: did they suggest which story would be the next one, or did they ask you what one would be the best for you to do next for these, Ben?
You're assuming we've decided. There was some discussion which I was involved in, and then some decisions were made, or maybe not made. Who knows? Who knows where we're at? Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just a thrill to be doing another one of these, least of all because we've all become quite a sort of a tight-knit team now. It would be awful if this was the end and I wasn't, going to get to work with Phil or with Rich or with Kieran, Scott, Tim. I mean, Mark, everyone. It's been, an absolute joy. I know it's really boring when people say that, isn't it? But I think this is it's the same with Doctor Who throughout, the last 60 years, really. It's always a bit of a slog. It's always quite hard to make it. Even the team making, Shooty series right now are coming up against all sorts of challenges, which, every production team has come up against for the last, 60 years. And so were we. There's never enough time. There's never enough money, and you're staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning to try and get it all done. So, it's a thrill that we've been asked to do another one, and that it's this same group of wonderful people who've worked so ridiculously hard to make this happen.
And I mean, name a story you wouldn't want to see in color. Whenever I think about the idea of, re-editing anything from the 60s and adding color to it, I get excited. I honestly, I don't think there could be a bad choice for the second project. I'm absolutely thrilled to be involved.
Right. It'll be Marco Polo, but the only way you'll see it is when it comes back, and only in full color and an omnibus version. That'll make everyone happy, I imagine.
Amazing how to make everyone cross at once.
Exactly.
It's the only way to make people angry that Marco Polo's back.
Yeah,
exactly.
By discovering Marco Polo and then losing half of it immediately. That would be amazing.
Don't worry, guys, we cut it down.
Yeah, coming to BBC4 in 2024. Well, that's super. I mean, it's amazing that all of you who have worked on this, essentially, not to cut down your abilities or anything, but we all sort of started as fans. I'm always stuck with Peter Capaldi's remarks when he was announced as the new Doctor on August 4th, 2013. We all make Doctor Who, and the three of you on this call and everyone else who worked on this are a testament to that, where you take something from the 1960s and bring it up to date. And all of your efforts are basically done throughout your own. I mean, you've sort of built up these skills on your own, and they've been recognized by the people who officially make Doctor Who. So it's a testament to your skill and dedication that this is a thing that's going to happen.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoy it.
Very much.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing.
That's true.
I hope people listen. I hope you like it. People might hate it. People have been incredibly enthusiastic about it so far. They've been very nice about the idea of it being in color, about it being cut down, which I thought would get a lot of people very cross. People seem to have been really enthusiastic about. They haven't seen it yet. I hope people like it.
I'm sure they will. And they'll certainly appreciate the effort. The Daleks in color, coming to BBC4 and iPlayer on November 23rd, and Blu-ray in early 2024. Ben, Rich, Kieran, thank you all very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, chaps. Yeah, it's tell you what, the power of this podcast. The second the announcement happened, I was like, oh my god, what? Daleks colorized? That I emailed Benjamin Cook. Just, he'll get to it when he gets to it. Like 2 minutes later, he emails me back. Yes, let's go on our fast. What about Rich Tipple? Okay, I email Rich Tipple. And it says, yes, please. So like,
meanwhile, Kieran's like on a cross-world trek as well, so I'm glad he could make it.
Yeah, Rich. I mentioned that. Gotta get Kieran in because he wants to be on. Oh, I didn't even know he was on there. I just literally And so, yeah, within like 10 minutes of that announcement happening, we had a podcast thing arranged. So thanks, Jeff, for being so accommodating.
One thing that I enjoyed was the so when the news first broke, I'd posited, hey, maybe there's other stuff that's going to get colorized, and that was brought up in the interview, and RTD did his own separate confirmation of that. So. So we're gonna see some more.
Yeah, somebody I can't remember. It might have been the Mirror again. Posited that the War Games be the next one to get colorized, chopped down to 75 minutes and colorized.
How about this?
Good
Telesnaps colorized. It's the
Telesnaps.
most frustrating thing ever. They're in color now.
How exciting!
Given the Daleks is the first appearance of the Daleks, one reasonable suggestion could be the 10th planet, and there's definitely room in the 10th planet for it to be chopped down a bit. So
that's true.
So if I'm going to put that forward as my formal guess as to.
I like how I'm for it too. Just we're chop down advocators now. It's like, yeah, chop it down. Cut it out. I don't care, but I kind of am, frankly.
We've been spoiled by the pace of New Who.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we can't sit and watch, like when we did the Michael Ferguson miniscope not that long ago, like sat down and watched 7 episodes of Ambassadors of Death, no problem.
Yeah. Went by pretty quick though.
But
I mean,
there's that pacing difference that we've now become used to, and that's not just Doctor Who, that's everything. But
is there though? Really? Have you ever sat down and watched a Netflix show?
Try not to.
They expect you. They expect you to sit and watch 8 episodes in one weekend, and like they pace it like that. And I'm like, this is boring and slow.
I don't. Did I say this on air last time about Surf Dracula, where if it was a real TV show from the 80s, Surf Dracula would be surfing within 5 minutes, and then Netflix, the last 5 minutes of the 10th episode is Dracula finally surfing?
Oh, no, you didn't say that, but
I can't take credit for that. I saw that somewhere on the internet, but that's a good summation of how streaming works.
Yeah,
or doesn't.
It is sadly. It is. Here's some exciting news. The Daleks is coming to Blu-ray. I think it's February 12th in the UK. February 27th. That's only 2 weeks. 2 weeks later. And in North America, it's up for pre-orders. So the Daleks in color will be coming to Blu-ray. So actual proper legal ways to purchase it and find it. So
I'll believe it when I see it, given current Blu-ray conditions.
It is kind of hilarious, and I still don't know why this is that we're getting Underwater Menace January 9th, I want to say, off the top of my head, in North America.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And we're getting this Daleks on February 27th, yet it's still like April 2nd for the season 20 box set. Why is it? Why? Why is it so long?
What if there's 2 different divisions releasing these things or something?
I really don't know, but like it's like, it's in September in the UK, right? Like that is an epic amount of time. They haven't announced a new one yet, though. Oddly enough, they haven't announced one yet, so that's kind of
no. And Ian Levine's mad about that too. So,
I saw that he's had a week, Ian Levine. So just treat him gently, anyway. Hey, so this is also kind of cool and happened with zero fanfare. But
I predicted it.
Yeah, you did, didn't you? Warren actually said,
kind of, yeah.
Series 10, 1 through 10, so everything before the Jodie Whittaker era is now available on Prime Video in Canada. Just dropped on there. We were somebody pointed out to us, a listener messaged us on Instagram and told that this was happening. And sure enough, there are all, and the way that Prime orders it, it's not the whole series. It's all like individual entries for each season, which is annoying. Because you search Doctor Who, but they're all there. Yes, Warren. But
it's not. There's no commercial breaks. This is actually legit BBC stuff. But I just tested out. I don't know why Gridlock is the one I always test out, but I always kind of test out Gridlock to see what the conditions are. It's definitely not up-resed. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
It's pretty much res-resed. And yeah, there's no commercial breaks. And this is just me complaining, but at least on the Apple TV, that's not Apple's fault. It's Amazon's fault. The Amazon app sucks for scrolling. You basically have to get on your phone and scroll with that because it's just terrible for scrolling. But that, again, is Amazon's.
Like through the episode?
Like scrolling. I wanted to get to the end. I wanted the part about, the speech about Gallifrey. And doing it on your actual remote is a waste of your time. And again, Amazon's fault, not Apple's. And Amazon used to have an even worse app. Like, they don't care about their Prime app. They never have.
No.
So it was kind of a trial to try and watch it until I was, I can just scroll this on my phone using it as a remote. But I shouldn't have to do that. Amazon should get their finger out of their butt and get it right.
I agree. Yeah. At least it's there, though. At least
but it is there. Yes, it is there.
Because it was, somebody asked me not too long ago, thinking, so you like Doctor Who. Where do you think I should start? And I think, well, you know what? I cannot mention anything because there's nowhere for you to watch it. Because I always said 11th hour, great starting point, but it's nowhere on streaming, and I feel bad to say, just buy the entire season on iTunes unseen.
And if you have Prime, you just have this, so that's kind of good in a way because it's just sitting there as a library until Prime gets rid of it, which they may do. Who knows why or how? Yeah,
I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, maybe I'm not too curious about the Whittaker stuff because I think technically Crave, Bell Media, whatever they're called in this country, still owns some of the rights to that stuff. So I don't think they've quite expired yet. So I imagine once those rights officially expire, they'll probably show up on Prime as well. So,
which would probably be the end of a fiscal year or something.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know what time. I mean, January 6th is when it disappeared from Crave, and I think they had the rights until they actually had the rights. Certainly, the last Whittaker stuff for quite a while.
The most auspicious reason to remember that date, January 6th. Yes,
right. I know. It's the day. It's the date that Doctor Who left. Crave.
And nothing else.
Nothing else happened historically on January 6th. Nothing at all. Across the world, I don't know if UK even has this, but classic Doctor Who is now on Tubi. Yeah, it's on BritBox, still on BritBox, which is where I don't watch it much because I have all the DVDs, but I pay for BritBox mostly just to support Doctor Who on BritBox. But they have almost all of classic Doctor Who on Tubi. They have a lot of the animations. On all of the animations, from what I've seen, I think Benjamin Elliott was on Twitter saying like the moon base isn't on there for some reason, and a couple other things aren't on there. But yes.
But it's not on demand. It's just streaming, a continuous stream, right?
It is. No. No, it's on demand. Tubi's on demand.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay,
and it's not like Pluto. Pluto.tv is like is
okay.
The on is the constant streaming stuff. But no, you can actually now. Of course, there are ads on Tubi, which is if you don't mind ads, that's fine. I do mind ads because usually it's the same 3 ads that are going across. You know what I mean? So I hope that is okay with you people if you just want to watch classic Who on Tubi because but it's there.
Well, technically we watched it with ads when there were pledge breaks, so
yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, or if we watched it on YTV or Space, those both had commercials.
Yeah,
the important thing is people get to see Doctor Who.
That's true. Yeah, classic Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's on there. I haven't checked if An Unearthly Child is up there actually.
I want to say I saw somebody say it's not.
It's not there. Interesting.
But it's still on BritBox.
Still on BritBox. Still there. So, and of course, it's still on my DVD. So that's the important.
Does this mean you can't watch your annual November 23rd tradition of watching at the proper time? You can't for legal reasons. You can't watch it.
That's true. I cannot watch it. I am breaking the law if I watch An Unearthly Child this Thursday at precisely 10:16 and 20 seconds my time. No. I'm going to be doing
it. Season 1 starts with Season 1, Episode 1, The Daleks, the Dead Planet.
The Daleks, the Dead Planet. Interesting. Interesting indeed. A Kickstarter has launched. This has been in the works for quite some time, but it's finally there. The Philip Hinchcliffe years, The DNA of Doctor Who launches. It's a big old book. with full of pictures that are planned and articles and things and contributions from lots of people, including Louise Jameson, Toby Haydock, Matthew Sweet, and so forth. So yeah, the Kickstarter is now live. With the goal, they're already halfway there for the goal, which is pretty cool. So it's got another 12 days to go for that. Links in the show notes. If you want to support the Kickstarter about Philip Hinchcliffe, big old book about Philip Hinchcliffe. So yeah, I remember Gareth Kavanagh, who's put the thing together, was talking to me about this at Gallifrey 1 2022, I think it was. So it's been a long time coming. So this issue 6 of Vorp is available right now, which looks really cool. It's funny, they posted a video of the meeting on Barnes Common, which is how the novelization Doctor Who and an Exciting Adventure with the Daleks starts. I actually joked to Benjamin Cook after we were recording that I wondered if they had got like Jamie Glover, Julian's son, but also what played Ian Chesterton in Adventure in Space and Time,
right? To
like do a reenactment or something of the book, because seeing that An Unearthly Child isn't going to be on iPlayer as of yet, they might have to concoct a new intro to Doctor Who. So you might as well use the one from the novelization, and then they just make it in Vorport magazine. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I watched the video for that, and it looked pretty neat, but yeah, Vorp issue 6, which looks pretty cool. There's a whole stuff.
I've said it before, but yeah, my God, this is a good looking magazine for something that is essentially a fan made production. Like, it's crazy how good it looks.
It's stunning. It's stunning stuff. I know. It's and they only have 6 of them. I should really kind of pick this up because it's pretty cool. They have a thing with Mark Gatiss in there as well, and comics, and yeah, it's really well done. It's kudos to the people who put Vorp together, because it's quite impressive. So, links in the show notes. You can get your own copy there. I think they do digital. I don't know for sure, but all 6 issues that they've had are there. Some of them which are sold out. So good luck finding those in back order. Speaking of comic books, Free Comic Book Day is coming in May, I think it is when that usually is, and there'll be a new 15th Doctor comic. In fact, it will launch the 15th Doctor range, the Free Comic Book Day comic from Titan Comics. So that's cool. They even posted a cover. It's got like Ncuti Gatwa on it, doing his de facto Doctor thing now. It's funny though how like the Peter Capaldi one-off hand pose has just sort of become Doctor Who pose now, because Tennant's been doing it, and Rachel Talalay and Tennant were doing it on set of the Star Beast when they were making it. So that's the cover of it there. Anyway, so there you go. Free Comic Book Day coming up. There'll be Doctor Who content for it. The BFI has posted a fun thing for nerds like me, and indeed Warren and I, thanks to our friend Simon, we were taken to various locations about where Doctor Who was shot, but they have a whole list of then and now locations for some stuff from classic episodes, like the Invasion, where we shot our Radio Free Skaro intro.
That's true, we did. Yes,
it was on those very steps.
I'm sure we're the first people to have that idea.
Oh, just like, wow! Wait a minute, they're doing a Doctor Who thing because this is where the Cybermen were back in 1968. Yeah. So there's a whole host of pictures of locations then and now from some various stuff, including the Demons, one of the few that I've been to, so I can confirm that that's what it looks like. Chris, you never made it to what is it, Aldbourne? Is that what it's called? Aldbourne. Yeah, you never made it there, did you? No,
I didn't.
No, or Warren for that matter, because you weren't there.
No, I have not either.
Hell, Andrew Smith.
Demons, and not one of my favorite episodes. So not that I hate it, I just don't get the hype.
Yeah,
I've done multiple Doctor Who location things or pub crawls, whatever.
Right.
So I've been to St. Paul's and Ealing and this and that, and around around the BT Tower.
Oh yeah,
Post Office Tower.
Wotan Tower. You can call it that. Yeah.
Wotan. Just Wotan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know what you're talking about.
So I've been to lots of places, and then went to whatchamacallit from the Claws of Axos.
Oh, the power station, didn't you? Newton Power Station.
Not last time, but the time before with Andrew.
Right.
Yeah. Down to toward the south coast.
Right. They even show off the ones that we went. What Shad Thames is what it's called, where they shot Resurrection of the Daleks, and now,
which used to be crumbling and now is not.
It's very
even
high.
in the 90s. It wasn't when they went back for DVDs way back then. It was already kind of toning up.
It was a bit of a dump. Yeah. Anyway, next time we go back to London, it would be cool to see all that because I just love looking at live locations. In fact, one of the first ones was like the BFI building itself, which is
which I didn't even realize until it was pointed out to me. Yeah,
that concrete edifice and staircase, and thinking, oh wow, what a drab looking staircase. That's from the Frontier in Space. I remember that.
Yep,
very exciting for me.
Went not last time I was there, but the time before, I think, went with a bunch of people to some pub in Wapping, which is right by some Talons of Wang Chang locations as well. So yeah.
Oh, there's a great
London.
thing.
There's lots of stuff.
There's so much stuff there.
The great thing about classic Doctor Who is if you can just go to any parking lot, and that's Day of the Daleks. Basically,
that's true. Like,
there was a glorious time, like THX 1138 has a lot of parking lot stuff. For a while, their parking lots were the future. I'm not sure why, but they were.
Brutalist concrete parking lots. That was like the way of things.
Yeah, we need a dystopian area. Well, here's a parking lot. That'll have to do.
I know. I think the very first episode
kind of works. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, Blake 7, there's a big massive shootout in an underground parking lot. So, yeah, the grim future. And now here's where we get to stuff because there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up to celebrate the 60th on audio form. But there are missing Doctor Who episodes, the audio versions on BBC Sounds. There's 3 of them from what I could tell. Daleks Master Plan, Marco Polo, and
Wheel in Space.
Wheel in Space. Sure. Those
we talked about this before when it was announced that there were going to be the 3 stories broadcast.
Right.
But it wasn't yet announced which stories they would be.
Oh, okay, that was it.
And
yeah,
now we know.
They all dropped on November 15th. Yeah. I don't know for sure. I know Mark Ayres posted on this on the social medias, but I wonder if these are what have been called the Randolph tapes, like the newly discovered off-air recordings.
Oh, as opposed to Graham Strong's efforts.
Yeah, apparently these ones are even better, and I don't know if these are mastered from those. If they were, they certainly weren't made a big deal of. So I'm curious if that was. I think it predate Marco Polo predates that. I think these are ones that are from around season 3 era. So technically Wheel in Space and Daleks Master Plan might be from those, but I don't know for sure. So
yeah, I've seen Mark talk on Facebook about having worked on the Daleks colorization and doing some audio there, but nothing about these. So I don't know if he's got any involvement in that at all.
No, I don't know. All right. Here is a section of stuff to remind you of things that are happening that you want to watch and listen to over the upcoming week here. So the first one, the first half has already gone out. Surviving Doctor Who and A to Z with Toby Haydock on BBC Radio 4 Extra. The first half went up at midnight, I think it was on this Saturday that we're talking to you right now. It was fun. They basically went from A to M, and through Z will be the next installment. It will probably be out by the time you hear this episode. So that's there. It's fun. Toby Haydock's always good fun when it comes to Doctor Who. So there you go. That's one thing to listen to. Another thing I'm looking forward to is the Wilderness Years documentary presented by Matthew Sweet, which is coming to BBC Radio 4 on November 19th. He interviews Paul McGann. Paul Cornell's on it. Of course, he had a big deal with the, I think he coined the term, the Wilderness. No, he calls it the theme park years. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Graham Kibble-White's on there. I don't know what he's doing there for, but he said on Twitter that he's going to be on there. So lots of people.
And so is Michael Grade, apparently. And the aforementioned Ian Levine.
Oh,
wow. Really?
Is he really on this?
Paul McGann, Mark Gatiss, Sophie Aldred, Nick Briggs, Sylvester McCoy, Michael Grade, Graham Kibble-White, Paul Cornell, Ian Levine, Karen Davis.
You know what's great is that when you have Ian Levine on a show with Michael Grade comes off okay.
True. Looking forward to that. It's often a time period which isn't necessarily covered in on Doctor Who media. The time that it was off air while we were cultivating the new people who were going to be making the show. So
and still are.
And still are. So good on Matthew Sweet for doing that. Radio 2 celebrates Doctor Who at 60 throughout December 3rd. There's a whole host of different programs that are going to be on Radio 2 throughout. I think we mentioned this earlier as well. But so there, that's the thing that's happening. So bookmark that if you want. On the actual day, November 23rd is going to be so busy, just because there's, I watched An Unearthly Child illegally, apparently, and
immorally,
and very much immorally. And then it's the Daleks in color, of course, which will be on somewhat shortly afterwards. Even though I won't have a chance to watch it until it comes out on Blu-ray, of course. And then, but on BBC Radio, BBC Radio Solent, which I still don't understand what that is, but Murray Gold hitting the right notes. It's a whole special on Murray Gold music. That's happening on November 23rd. There's Doctor Who, The Welsh Connection on BBC Radio Wales. Doctor Who's connection with Wales, which is giant now that, of course, it's been made
tons
there.
of that. That's basically all of New Who, really.
Yeah, the last 20 years of making Doctor Who has been in Wales, so... It's fascinating to think that we're getting to the point where the majority of Doctor Who in the history of Doctor Who will have been made in Wales and not in London.
The quote unquote new stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, think of overall how long they spent at Riverside or at Ealing or at Lime Grove or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's often some of those are off and on, but still, it's a lot of time in Cardiff now.
A lot of time in Cardiff, although they have been in 3 or 4 different studios in Cardiff too. To be fair,
yes,
yes.
And I seem to recall when that whole thing was announced, there was a bit of a hullabaloo because the BBC was shifting around how they did things. It seems to have worked, so no biggie. But at the time, I mean, people going, you can't just not make it in London. What the hell?
Yeah. They were decentralizing basically all of their productions.
Which I think was probably a good idea in retrospect.
Yeah, not everything could be made in London.
Not just for Doctor Who.
Media City up in Salford has done fine for their efforts. So,
yeah, exactly. Also on BBC Radio Wales, Doctor Who on BBC Wales. I think they're looking at music on that one as well, actually, and a history of music on that. So 2 things on BBC Radio Wales on November 23rd. Bargain Hunt, a show I've never watched, and so I don't understand the gist of, but there's a Doctor Who edition of Bargain Hunt to air on November 23rd on BBC One. That's the only Doctor Who content, apparently, on BBC One will be Bargain Hunt on the anniversary.
The tagline is a deep dive on Daypole. It is not. I have made that up.
Right.
Just nothing but a half hour of Daypole stuff. Oh, this is not worth a damn.
Right.
With this.
I should also point out, I don't think we have the show notes, but An Adventure in Space and Time is airing immediately after the Daleks on BBC 4 as well. It's post Watershed because there's people smoking in it. And
it's magnificent.
And you won't see any dialogue from An Unearthly Child in it. I've had to re-edit it. So
you must be lying about that.
No, I'm not.
Really?
I am not.
Oh my God.
That's not a lie, Warren.
That's ridiculous.
They've had to have done this because
that is idiotic.
It's a little bit silly. So watch and see what changes have occurred in the original from the original An Unearthly An Adventure in Space and Time by tuning into BBC 4 at 9:00, I guess it would be, immediately after the Daleks airs. The next day, Radio 4 at 9 p.m. after Watershed as well. Sue Perkins is going to be swearing up a storm as she hosts Doctor Who 60 Years of Friends and Foes on BBC Radio 4. Chris, you were looking forward to this one because you like Sue Perkins.
Yeah, I dig Sue Perkins. She's awesome.
Yeah. While she's hosting that. She hosted Doctor Who documentaries before. I can't remember now, but...
None that leap to my mind.
No, no.
Just feels like saying much.
It feels like a natural. People are sort of saying it should be a great Doctor Who too.
She would make a fantastic. I would back that wholeheartedly.
Is she an actor?
She's more a comedian, but she has done acting and presenting stuff. So
okay, because we're getting back to in the early 2000s and late 90s when they were just casting game show hosts as wish casting for Doctor Who,
Yeah, well, I mean,
TV
they cast Peter
magicians.
Kay, so
but not as Doctor
Wish
Who.
casting is dumb. I think we
cast
can all
others.
agree on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Have you seen the cast of Disney's Wish? No.
No.
They're just saying
No, I have
Wish.
not.
Just Wish
I've seen a
casting.
trailer and it looked
I don't know
really
what that is.
not my cup of tea. Let's put it
No,
that way.
it's one of those Disney musicals and stuff. I saw it before we saw the Marvels in the theater.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
there was a special preview of Wish before Killers of the Flower Moon, and I guess it was probably people who worked on it here, I would assume, because this pile of people who looked suspiciously like animators came out of and I'm like, these are not Martin Scorsese people. What is going on here? And then all my people, the Martin Scorsese people, show up, and they're all like, forget about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we're good.
Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon was in the
Excellent.
cinema, too.
Very good.
I never saw it. I'm waiting for it to come to TV because I don't want.
Watch it over 2 nights.
Exactly. I will find my place to find an intermission in there and watch it in the comfort of my own home. Sorry, Martin Scorsese. Put an intermission in the movie if you're going to make it 3.5 hours long. Hey, this is fun. There's a Doctor Who, the Doctor Who The Bedtime Stories is coming to CBeebies on November 24th too. So yeah, you can put the kids to bed with the Doctor Who bedtime story. I don't know is there going to be a special Doctor Who reading it? I know Pro Mackie has done one of these before, and other Doctor Who people. Yeah,
Sophie Aldred has hosted some CBeebies content as well.
Okay.
I just want to see somebody like I don't know, Brian Blessed doing dramatic readings of AO3 stuff.
Go to bed.
right. As King Yorkados, you know.
Sure, why not?
I mean, or let's face it, King Yorkados is Brian Blessed.
Slash? What is Slash?
Yes, what is Slash? Do not touch your Yeah.
Slash, I thought you meant Flash.
Slash. He's alive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really breathtaking, frankly.
It is. Lastly, on the things to watch and listen to on things, Doctor Who Secrets and Scandals, a thing which is coming to Channel 5 on November 25th at 8:30 p.m. So this is after. Trying to think of what the time. Doctor Who Unleashed will air at 7:30 p.m. I think it's 30 or 45 minutes. I don't know how long those are. So this will be after. So there's your night of viewing there. This is a thing about behind the scenes scandals in Doctor Who, and it's on Channel 5. So it's not like official BBC. This is like the unauthorized list of scandals. I'm so intrigued by this, and Chris, you had some thoughts about this that you were talking about.
One of the last sentences in the press blurb.
Right.
The show reveals the surprisingly sexy fan spin-offs produced when the show was off air.
Oh no.
And how Doctor Who broke its own rules about sexual chemistry between the Doctor and the assistants as the series went on.
That is going to be...
So we're getting some Arizona Solution, boys and girls.
Oh, boy.
No, thank you. No,
are we going to get that? I know there have been a couple of adult film remakes of Doctor Who.
I would assume they'll probably show the cleaner clips of that, too.
I wouldn't be surprised if we got some Katie Manning and Dalek.
I guarantee they'll do that.
Content.
Yeah.
Maybe that too.
Yeah,
I know.
There's gonna be a narration like this, and then
is,
Doctor Who was very racy in the
There isn't
70s.
that much scandal to go off. Well, whatever, they'll find something.
Yeah, they probably will.
It also mentions things like revelations about how some monsters and storylines created for the series proved to be so scary the BBC were forced to re-edit episodes.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that's
not
going to
a
be just
scandal.
classic stuff, not stuff like beheadings and Robot of Sherwood.
Right.
no, it'll be. Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. This I think. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Pandering. It's going to be pandering fluff.
It's going to be pandering fluff, and it's going to be probably a disaster as well. And I think this will probably claim the Doctor Who after party element of the 60th anniversary. It'll be the train wreck, the one train wreck that we'll have to celebrate that. So. But lastly, on our bit of news list here, there's a Doctor Who event at the Pulse and the Kings in Cardiff, a nightclub. And it's a Doctor Who takeover, a Wild Blue party, an unofficial celebration is happening in Cardiff. There's venue decor, photo ops, fancy dress up as your favorite Doctor, or if it's not your thing, join in anywhere. Wear something blue, actually the color of blue, for the big thing. It's an unofficial event that's happening in Cardiff's new Canal Quarter there. So if you're in Cardiff and you want to have a proper good time at a nightclub to celebrate Doctor Who, there is your invitation, folks. Off to Cardiff you go for that. So there we are. That is
you missed the New Zealand bit.
What is the New Zealand bit? Tell us what the New Zealand bit, because I forgot it, Chris. I didn't open my list. What is it?
Doctor Who Worlds of Wonder coming to Wellington, 1st of June 2024.
Oh my God! That's a long ways away. Okay,
that's a long ways out. Yeah.
I have a little side note.
Sure.
I edit the Game of Rassilon. Ben Oquendo, I hope I said that right, Padden, let me know earlier this week. He found the long dead Red Dwarf 2003 role-playing game documents somewhere. So he's put them on archive.org. So if you want to play RPG Red Dwarf, it's up there now on archive.org. Just look for it.
Wow.
Yep.
Deep cut.
Very deep, yes.
All right. Well, that's it. That is it for this episode. Happy anniversary upcoming for Doctor Who, 60th anniversary. There might be stuff happening. There might be a lot of news to come this week as well. We'll break it down for you, of course, live on our live stream on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Radio Free Skaro. We're doing all of our 3 episode reviews live there. And of course, it'll be on the podcast later as well. But if you want to join us for that, and also submit your questions in the live chat for the Fluid Links Advent calendar, that is all happening on Sunday for us. There's new Doctor Who to talk about, the Star Beast, happening on Saturday as well, of course, which we'll be talking about on next week's episode of Radio Free Skaro. So until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
More to Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.